In Haiti, a divine spirit is called a Loa. Legba is a Loa who is the link between the visible mortal world and the invisible immortal realms. He is the means and avenue between them, the vertical axis of the universe.
So do you remember things that we forgot to talk about in Invisibles?
I mean, that's a long time ago, James.
Yeah, no.
I do remember that I remember thinking, hey, I interrupted you when you're talking about Orientalism. And I thought that was probably a point that we should go back to if you wanted to comment on that.
Yeah, okay. That'll probably happen. So for those of you tuning in, we're returning to the Invisibles for our small chunk commentaries. We're doing issue 9 through 12. And June 1995 to September 1995. We really should have read issue 9 with all the Marquis de Sade stuff, all the in Arcadia, because it's essentially the end of that story. It feels like we're just reading the tail end of something to read issue 9.
You know what's fun? I had never read that issue before. It's like I had a few issues that were gaps in my collection, and that was one of them. So, yeah. So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, shit. What's the review now that you've read it?
I mean, it's just a kind of a transition issue. It's fun. Like it's got a lot of act. In fact, when I was looking through some of the letters, as I like to do when I read individual issues, and Grant says that he felt like it was important to give all that historical context with the Romanticism to set the framework of the series, which is something we talked about in our last episode. But he said now it's time to spill some innards. So this was definitely that issue. So sort of like you got the fun, the Myrmidians, the foot soldiers of the enemy are advancing on the tower, and they got to fight their way out. They got to just come up with a deception to be free because they're pinned down.
Did you ever look up anything about the Myrmidians? Like it's been there right in front of my face, but I don't know what that word means.
Okay, I did actually. They were I looked it up last time. I think it was like they were Greek foot soldiers, but kind of mercenary. So just kind of like people willing to do anything for pay. And so that term became sort of a sort of, whatever slang for like sort of like hired thugs or like brutal thugs.
Oh, wow. Okay. So that's really on the nose. That's but it also gives them mythical resonance
yes.
in a fun way. That's interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a cool illusion.
Okay. Good for Grant.
Yeah.
Yeah, but since like, it is a big action piece, and one thing though that maybe will help us like go back and talk about some other stuff like from Arcadia and earlier is that story opens with a different framing device than we've seen. So the other storylines, whatever the fuck they were called, Arcadia, and what was the one before that with
Down and Out and Heaven and Hell? Is that?
There we go. Yeah, Down and Out and Heaven and Hell. Those stories are framed by the first one by Egypt. Full page dealing with Egypt and the scarab and all that shit. And then Arcadia begins kind of incongruously, it seems, although thematically appropriate, a trip to India, and talking about the Dalang. And this episode or issue storyline, 23, it all falls down. We all fall down. It's Lovecraftian. Am I wrong about that?
No, you're not at all. In fact, Tithagua, they find a toad nailed to a cross in this church. Tithagua is a Lovecraftian god, sort of like a toad-like giant creature who has all these spawn that kind of run around and go crazy sometimes.
Okay. Yeah, 23, things fall apart, and there's like the I Ching there. I'm sure there's all sorts of clever things in there. But
yeah. And we also get our first I was just going to say they mentioned the Hand of Glory. So there are some important sort of references, but they talk about the Hand of Glory in this, which is the first time that's mentioned.
And the first time we're seeing John of Dreams.
Yeah.
We've been hearing about. Yeah. And I don't know, like, is it in your like in your mind, is the chess player John of Dreams? Some people refer to him as Satan, and I really don't know why. No, I guess his hair is completely different. I guess that never stopped anyone. Maybe he dyed his hair.
I'm glad you brought that up, actually, because that was another thing that we didn't get into last time. But yeah, right. I have always kind of assumed that, but I can't remember well enough to know if that's accurate or if it holds up over the entire series. But I think I could see the Satan thing because he, when he's talking to Mary Shelley in the carriage, I think he even offers her an apple. Like it's sort of like a temptation moment. Yes. So there's that. Yeah. Which again is that romanticism. Like it's, Satan in the romantic tradition is not necessarily totally bad. Like they're very sympathetic to his cause of rebellion.
And in this, the character is rebellious. He, in a ontological sense, like he's basically in the early, and we're spoilers for everyone. We're going to see this again from. Are we going to call him Satan from here on out? And then if we find a reason to change our mind,
sure, yeah, why not?
Yeah, that's fun. Because we got to call him something. I think some people just call him the chess player. That might be more appropriate as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to call chess player just to kind of, and he. Oh shit. He later is also, in speaking with Dane, is going to again allude to life being a game, like he does when he's talking with Ragged Robin.
Okay.
Yeah, and then that's going to tie into one of the issues that we get into. But anyway, so like ontologically, he's trying to. Okay, well, here's why you might not want to call him Satan, because like he's not trying to rule anything. Is he leading a rebellion, or is he asking people to tune out? Tune in, drop out, whatever the fuck the three things goes.
Yeah,
it's more
turn
of a
on, tune in, drop out.
Yeah, right. Thank you. Fuck, Timothy Leary's rolling in his grave. Sorry, Tim. I got one of his books downstairs. That makes me legit. So the framing, I mean, like the Lovecraftian framing, I don't think it does any work, but these frames don't right now exist to do work. They're set up, obviously.
Yeah.
They're not doing like immediate work, but I don't know, the Egypt and India gets back to, I think, what I wanted to comment about Orientalism. And I'm not even sure if it kind of calls into question its own Orientalism. Like they have Alfred. He does all of his mystic mumbo jumbo, and he's like, that's what some people say who want to seem interesting. So it kind of immediately digs into the idea, but I think it's still significant and meant to point to something eternal and wise and enlightened. And that's the point of the framing. I don't know.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think he's just kind of taking the piss out of himself a little bit just by, with that comment, but I don't think he'd have it in there if it wasn't meant to stand for something.
Yeah. And then, I don't know, the comment about, I already said, but the comment about DeLange, the puppeteer, which I guess gets back to this whole idea that it's just a game, it's just
and what we were talking about in the first episode of decides what the apparent contradictions are actually the same thing in a way. And I won't say too much about that now, but it's going to have major implications for the series.
Yeah. The DeLange is, his skill makes us believe that we see a war between two great armies, but there is no war. There is only the DeLange. And, and it's also like that's Grant and his artist.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so and then it immediately, jumps into Shelley and Byron and poetic creation and that sort of thing. So anyway, this stuff's, I think obviously I think we jumped into some of that, but at the same time, I don't think we pressed on it hard enough that this book is also about the creative process.
Yeah, very meta.
Yeah.
And in fact, so much of it is about Grant's own experiences being translated into comics and thought through on this in this forum.
Yeah, even so much that, and I feel that we very definitely brought this up last time, but King Mob being an analog for, or, like a stand-in or an avatar for Grant himself, throughout the story. So it's, and later on, he's gonna turn into that real hard in an act of, sigil magic, as he'd refer to it, which is another thing. I don't know when would be the best time to talk about like Grant's relationship to magic and chaos magic and that kind of thing. Maybe when we get to Jim Crow.
That's a good point. Yeah. I think touching on our attitudes towards magic conspiracy will come up in this episode.
Yeah, finally.
Yeah.
So I don't know, just flipping through the thing here. Yeah, so Dane kills someone and then he screams into the heavens. I don't know. That doesn't. That's weird to me.
Yeah.
Just even the way it's drawn. Although a lot of grim humor in this.
Yes.
Look at this poor bastard. That's what he gets for sunbathing without an ozone layer.
Yeah, there's some pretty lame one-liners in this, but they're still fun.
Yeah.
And then self-consciously, or I guess self-reflexively, in terms of Grant's perspective, Boy tells him can you turn down the gallows humor? Because he's really going off on all these puns.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she...
Oh, go ahead.
Go on.
Nope, I was going to divert us, so go ahead.
No. Okay. Wait. Yeah. So I was just going to say she throughout the series we've seen so far, she's very much the conscience of the Invisibles. I think she remains so throughout the series, but but I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
I was going to say, I just really appreciate that Dane, after getting his finger cut off, just like takes off on them again and steals King Mob's car. I think that's very, I think a lesser, again, it's like Grant's a genius, and, he's not concerned about like forcing these characters to have cohesion. It's like, this guy's been through some fucked up shit. He's like this young delinquent. He's just taking off on them and stealing a car.
Yeah. And I think also, so there's that, and it propels much of the first volume. Dane's motion is like the river that all of the story flows inside of.
Yeah.
So like if he becomes stagnant, then I'm sure lots of things could have happened, right? But
yeah.
Yeah, I think that he's the engine for all the action.
Yeah, and that long initiation is interesting.
Yeah, which I like, and I think it's still happening. I mean, like this is still the initiation of Dane McGowan. Like he kills his first person. He comes to he gets caught in an explosion, fucking hell. Yeah. This is his first foray into real proper madness.
Yeah.
Well, like he's gotten beat up by some aristocrats earlier, and maybe jumped off a building, but who hasn't?
That was cool.
And then they decide they need to call Mr. Six.
Yeah. I think there's some good I like how they function as a team and kind of deceive the Myrmidians. Like King Mob pretends to be Orlando, who like takes people's faces and like ambushes the guys, and then they use a smoke screen to sneak out of the tower. And he's like, "Oh, they fucked me up," and like everybody run. Then they just kind of get the drop on the Myrmidians there. So yeah, a good introduction to like King Mob's like super spy kind of skills.
And everyone's they're improvisational. They're like jazz artists.
Yeah.
They're like this is a real fucking MacGyver maneuver on their part. It's just like, okay, what do we got? We got a tin can and some string. Let's fucking get them.
Cigarette lighter. It's cool. It is like it's a cool like a fun action sort of piece. The other thing I wanted to mention is that this if there's a theme among these issues, it's kind of setting up like compassion for the little guy, like for the bad guy who's kind of like just stuck in this job. And in this one, they mentioned like there are just a couple of soldiers are shown talking. You know, they're circling the windmill. And they're like, oh, like Orlando, like that guy's here. Oh, we shouldn't have to deal with people like that. I like that moment.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, because you're right. I don't think you get any of that in the Harmony House thing. You just get fucking dead bodies everywhere.
Yeah.
I don't think he's gonna slow down. Yeah. I think once again, I think Jill Thompson's art is just inappropriate for this story. Like it's fine. Like I can't complain about the storytelling. Like everything's visually coherent. She knows how to use panels to bring out action but at the same time, this isn't for her. I think when Grant eventually, we're gonna turn the page in a couple seconds. And we're going to see some art that's fucking amazing. And suddenly, for me, the Invisibles arrives.
Okay.
Yeah.
I still don't mind Jill Thompson, but I agree that it's not a perfect fit or anything.
Yeah. I mean,
I think we're saying the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I just got a little more negative valence on it.
Yeah. I have a little more positive on it, but
yeah. So anyway.
Yeah.
Issue 10, where we so what I like about these last 3 issues is the art is all by, so whoever's doing the art is doing the pencils and the inks, and sometimes I think even the lettering, but I might be wrong about that. And I don't know, that stood out to me, and I think it's just more interesting. But anyway, yeah. I don't know. How do we jump into this one? Fuck.
I mean, could you imagine being Chris Weston and just like coming in and being asked to like take on this particular comic, this material?
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
Yeah. But does he pull it off? Holy shit,
Yeah,
no fear. Just go for it. Like, I need you to draw like a zombie minstrel show where they're eating someone alive.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't forget the blackface. You're like, okay.
Hazard.
Yeah. So
I read this. It's funny. I read. So this is Season of the Ghouls, issue 10. I read this like probably 4 or 5 times, and every time I start off, and it just seems like it's going to be a total racist shit show. Like it doesn't, and like it totally turns around. Like Grant, I mean, like there's still maybe some questions about it, but it's not what you think it's going to be from the start. But it just starts with, your first panels are like this guy getting surrounded by a gang of black thugs, and it's all just like, it's all kiss me, bitch, give me some of that heat, tell me you love me, come on. You're like, oh, I don't know how this is gonna go.
Yeah, and one of them, they kind of look like Chuck D, and like. It is 1994, and Chris Weston. I don't know what his exposure to American hip hop culture is.
Yeah.
And then they're obviously dead because they're all gray, and so they're definitely zombies.
Yeah.
And then we get the crime scene afterwards. Grant's real comfortable with the N-word in this one.
Yes, I noticed that as well.
Yeah, and like again, 1994 or 1995, and it's not like it's contextually appropriate.
It is exactly.
Like I think Chris Claremont even drops the N-bomb in like his X-Men comics. I think he has Kitty Pryde some sort of give a speech or whatever, so like I guess that was just something you could do for a while.
Well, and I mean, one of the instances is like this white CEO who's like basically revealing his contempt for this this district that he's operating in, and so I mean contextually, like you say, it's like it's meant to dramatize like that, but
yeah,
we've probably flipped, I think, in the 30 years since.
Oh no, I don't know. I think you could. I think, oh man, like I think people still do it, and I part of me thinks that you still can. You should. I mean, but you got to be real careful. And
Yeah.
and I think that I don't think, for the reason you stated, I don't think this book handles it badly.
Yeah.
It's just like it is. You're just kind of like, oh, yeah. I just don't think of Grant in that way.
No.
It feels like I've seen him. I just watched we just watched him have people like Marquis de Sade fantasies fucking, by fuck, it's not enough, and then destroy the universe. And we were like, oh, that's fine. But he drops the N-bomb and we're like, oh, it's interesting what I don't know, just there's how, I guess how nervous systems change over time.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty dead to that stuff.
I honestly, like, if it's art, if it's appropriate, I am generally, I can understand,
Yeah. What's the lieutenant's name? Is it Lieutenant Peebles? The only person who really seems to use his name is the millionaire, Mr. Dollamore, and I'm worried that it's like that's him making fun of him.
Oh, shit!
And I just missed it.
I think I missed it too. You get the white detective's name a lot, Nordo.
Yeah. And for a while, actually, I was like, oh, that's his name. But then I thought about it. Like I went through the panels bit by bit, and I was like, where's this guy's name? So I don't know. For now, until we find it, I'm going to go with Peebles. Yeah, he just introduces himself as Chicago PD.
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm sure it'll pop up as we're bopping around, but let's call him the police detective for now.
Yeah.
Just in case Peebles is really offensive and I'm completely ignorant. So there's been a horrible crime, and he's been talking with Creole psychics, and I kind of like Nordo. Like when he's just like, I've got a date with a bottle of tequila, oblivion. That's all I want. He's just like, I love how Chris Weston draws him. Like he's got those eyes closed and a big smile, and he's like saluting everybody as he's like, fuck off.
Yeah.
Oblivion.
He also just does not give a shit about black people, which is like very realistic for police. So
that's fair too. But at the same time, I don't think he gives a shit about anything. Like,
that's probably true. Yeah.
Yeah. That's how I got it. I didn't get a sense of racial animus, but I mean, fine.
No, I think it's that sort of like casual racism of like, I don't really care about this crime that much, and I'd rather get drunk.
Yeah. You're dealing with the relatives, sir. Your turn.
Yeah. But I like this because we have our detective who's like the tough, the streetwise, like smart black cop, which I think that's a really important component of the story, particularly because Jim Crow is,
he's not dignified.
Well, that's complicated, I think, because he really is an avatar of Baron Samedi or Papa Gede, depending on. I'm not quite totally sure the distinction between those two figures. I think they're sort of like one's an avatar of the other. But like I went looking. I don't know if you did too. But like all of his attributes, like the sort of like crude humor, like the sort of like joviality, the sexuality, the appetite, like that's all like right in line with like what Baron Samedi is and what he does and what he asks of people that he's working with. And the representation, like the top hat, the spectacles with the one lens removed, like those are iconically part of his character. Yeah,
and so so there's that, and I think we might as well just get straight before we start talking about like voodoo and shit like that. We'll talk about Jim Crow. He's also named Jim Crow, right?
Yeah,
and and he's a musician. He's a gangster rapper, but his shtick is. His stick is voodoo, but he's called the Root Doctors, which is apparently from hoodoo, but whatever. but the idea of Jim Crow as as a minstrel show, from the early 19th century American culture, we might want to say it's maybe the first gangster rap, first Eminem, the first white people explicitly taking on black.
Oh, okay.
Blackface for one, but then at the same time acting culturally black in a manner meant to degrade. Talking about being drunk and kissing women and shit like that. So there's a cultural parody element to him as well. He's really and it ties in later to what he does with the fucking executives. That last image at first of him turning them mind controlling them into black-faced minstrels who are eating that guy. Part of me was like, that's super offensive, and then the more I thought about it, I was like, that's really smart.
Yeah, it is.
I was like, there's lots going on there. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So anyway,
I think even that to give a character who's a gangster rapper the name Jim Crow, that would be a self-chosen, a confrontational almost identity, sort of like a public. Sure. I mean, they're clearly meant to be public enemy in a way, when they show them on MTV or whatever, and they're talking about their thing, they even have that sort of vibe to them. His group, yeah. So it's obviously a political sort of stance that they have.
Yeah, well, and also it's an interesting idea, the claim that he has that Morrison has Jim Crow make is that he says that black people, when they want to get to their roots, they become Muslim, but he's like, no, that's not where our roots are. We're in Africa, we're are the first voodoo rap act, and we're saying to all our brothers and sisters, get yourself connected to the source. Yeah. I don't know, and that's interesting, but it and I don't know, it's kind of an interesting observation. But so often, and maybe this gets to the confrontational nature of Jim Crow as well. Think about zombies, zombie culture, voodoo. It's associated with black curses. It's voodoo has always been negatively associated with, just negatively. It's just been portrayed negatively, just generally.
Yeah, but only in white culture. I mean, in the dominant culture, that's sort of always of course. An expression of anxiety about black men and black people in general, because they're associated with this strange thing, and they may have powers and may be able to curse you, shit like that. So it's that representation is racist. But I think I give Morrison huge credit because, and I remember other things. In fact, we just watched Child's Play this weekend with my daughter for the first time. She's 10. Oh, and okay. I did not remember this, but Chucky, the reason the serial killer ends up in the doll is because he does a voodoo curse on it and transfers his consciousness, and then he's trying to use more voodoo to take over the child who he ends up with. So wow. Voodoo, especially in the 90s, voodoo in the 90s, historically, long running tradition, it tends to be that's all you see of it. And Grant is really giving you, voodoo is. It's definitely still focused on ritual and things like that. Don't get me wrong, but it's showing that it's a positive influence in this community. You see the sort of voodoo priestess, and she's summoning Jim Crow and Baron Samedi to help find her children or to help protect the community. And the detective says that Creoles have their own traditions, and that this is he's listening to this woman because she's respected and that sort of thing. So there's really an attempt to show voodoo in a different light.
Yeah, and okay, that I agree with you, but sadly, if you scratch beneath the surface, it gets more complex.
Sure.
So there's the I didn't write down her name. La Merci. Actually, no, that's not her actual name. Just the that's embarrassing. What is her name? He just calls her little sister. I'm not even sure if she actually has a name in the story.
Well, she says, I, Le Merci, Water Woman, Mambo, Priestess of Snakes.
Yeah, but I think
that's her ceremonial title, I think.
I think so. Yeah, if I remember correctly from the reading that I did. If I'm wrong about that, but like all of this stuff, even like everything she's chanting, it comes from what the fuck is it? It comes from the work of Michael Bertrio.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, so I read the stupid book, like as much of it as I could.
Wow.
Not as much of it as there is. It was like 700 pages. But yeah, and he's a white guy.
Yeah, white guy doing voodoo.
Doing the voodoo. But he's from Haiti. Like he's in Haiti, but he's from Chicago.
Okay. Yeah.
It's just like it's within it's Western magic. The extremely white male, although actually, I'll call it male for now, but there's fucking exceptions to be made. The appropriation of voodoo as in its effort to like further syncretize, and absorb all the mystical traditions into one sort of coherent blob that ultimately revolves around Jesus.
Yeah. Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, and I don't know, like, but at the same time, like he doesn't. So he's got like his words are counterfeit, but this idea and some of his treatment does come from the work of like a proper anthropologist, Karen McCarthy Brown, who studied and she followed around a mamba in the Bronx. And wrote the book called Mama Lola. I didn't read Mama Lola, but I read an article by Karen McCarthy Brown. And so like what I see in all the weird words and all the rituals is a weird blend of like anthropological observation and let's call it pop magic, like the pop magical tradition.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Did you hit upon Grant's own experience with voodoo?
Oh no! Oh, okay.
So I found this really interesting. I found this interesting article today. It was an interview actually he did a few years ago, and he was asked about the character Jim Crow, and he started telling the story about how he was experimenting with voodoo at the time, particularly with the representation of Baron Samedi, and or actually I think he says Papa Gede, but so he had this experience where he was like kind of messing around with this, and he had like this, he felt like he had a good connection with this Loa, but all of a sudden he started feeling these insect scorpion Loas coming, and they were telling him, we're going to make you into a killer, like you're going to kill for us, you're going to be our assassin. Obviously all this factors into the plot of Invisibles, as we'll talk about shortly. But so he got really freaked out. They told him he's going to have a tattoo of a scorpion on the base of his spine, and he just got like really freaked out. He's like, no, I'm a pacifist, I'm not going to do all this stuff for you. They wanted him to rip away people's psychic auras so they'd be exposed to parasites, and he just got really freaked out. He did a banishing ritual, and then he said he was I would actually find this pretty freaky too. He went, sat down, he's like, I gotta calm down, watch some TV, puts on TV, and Howard the Duck comes on, but at the end there's the scorpion monsters. Exactly. So he's like, oh no, they're coming at me through the TV. So he got really, he's like, he didn't mess with voodoo after that. And he says as far as he's concerned, he was stung by these Loas, and it led to this infection that kind of factors into the series later on. So I thought that was fascinating. But
well, yeah, like at least two things that you've said in all of that is going to factor into like issue 23 or 24 or something like that. Wow. Okay. Yeah. And like this book's so autobiographical.
Yes.
Like, and to the better of it. Like, it feels fresh no matter how many times I read it, because it seems like it's coming from somewhere.
Yeah. It's questing. It really is like an attempt to grapple with, what's it all about in a way. So, and it's really, I don't know, it's a very intelligent man, very creative man doing all that, and it's very compelling.
Yeah. What else we got here from how many times I fucking read Dolomite. So for anyone listening who hasn't read the issues for whatever reason, a pharmaceutical company has developed a crack which kills you immediately and then makes you into a zombie that can be controlled with goggles by rich white people. They show the guys sitting down at the boardroom, and they're Pearson. They're bringing Pearson into the inner circle, and he gives him the shades, and he explains the crack cocaine thing, and then he like puts on his shades, and he's like, "Let's party." Yeah. And I've read that like a million times. He's an awesome villain.
Yeah. And there's another moment of that, like sort of that idea of like the masters of this world are going to degrade you, but this guy is like joining into their thing. He's like, oh, like your wife won't say a thing. I gave her to Stevens over 6 months ago. Surely you noticed all the weird submissive shit she's been doing in bed. But like the price of like joining into this power is to just kind of give up like all the things and to have to be forced to just kind of be a fucking pawn. There's I
was going to say actually, maybe it's a little more sinister than that. It's because it's not that he's forced to give these things up. Like these things are being taken from him. Like he's obviously whatever it is he did to get into this circle of fucking assholes. Yeah. Like they've been grooming him. I think we're gonna like just to skip ahead, like with Kate, and Sir Miles. Like it's a theme that Morrison goes to. Like your loved ones. And I think it's a Chris Claremont thing.
There's an affinity between them, even like in the X-Men stuff he does. Yeah.
Just like the enemy takes your loved ones from you and mind controls them, specifically women. Like didn't you notice we turned her into the Dark Phoenix? Or what? Yeah. And I thought this was going to be a stag thing tonight. Or maybe he's getting married. That's even fucking worse. Jesus.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Oh no, he says got my wife and kid to think about. A little bit of this reminded me of not that I think that there's any sort of I think it's just coincidence, but did you see Get Out?
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah, because the whole thing in there is that. Oh, spoiler alert! If anyone wants to skip over ahead a few minutes, because that's a newer movie. But the whole thing is that they're like taking over the bodies of black men and just kind of like leaving behind their old feeble white bodies so that they can be in a young dude.
Yeah, which is, it's the ultimate form of appropriation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like it's slavery times a billion.
Yeah.
And I think like they explicitly allude to it while they're doing, like, it's all these rich guys. They're they're taking on these black bodies, and they're explicitly like, things were better when when they were slaves. N-bombs always did make the best slaves. It's good to see them back where they belong. Hey, Pearson. Yes, sir.
And it is like a video game where they're just
and it's like a video game, and it's just like this huge, like this. What makes this story so complex is like his depiction of voodoo is I'm going to say inauthentic, but and also itself a product of cultural appropriation, and yet he's using that appropriated tool to tell a story about cultural appropriation of black culture.
Absolutely.
And it's just like this snake that it's eating its own tail.
Yeah.
And you're like, no one's at blame here. Like this is just like a representation of the fucking mess of culture.
Absolutely. And even that first page, kind of what I was thinking, like, so the first page, you got like this image of like, the violent black street gangs that kind of haunts like, white imagination, particularly. I mean, always, not just in the 90s, but they're, the sort of anxieties about the inner city and shit like that, and so you're given this image of these thugs, but then you're showing that they're actually the products of schemes of the corporate elite, like who are just kind of like white supremacists who are like oppressing, and like that's a nice leftist message right there, neatly kind of done. And
then and it's interesting, I guess, because it's a visual medium. but Jim Crow's revenge didn't have to be sort of symbolically counter to what they were doing. Like I'm glad that it is, but it's like it shows an artistic flourish to his justice. I don't think we see this from any of the other Invisibles. He's very performative in his violence.
Yes.
And I don't know, maybe even like imagine those Myrmidians like fucking attack Jim Crow. Different story.
Yes.
I don't know what he would have done. It probably would have been horrific, but probably a lot more laughing and shooting of his bone gun.
Yeah.
We got anything else on that?
I had. Oh yeah, no. I just want to say that I like the sort of journey of our detective who's kind of leading the investigation. He just kind of pokes his head in and sees the zombies eating the CEO, and then he just kind of ducks out and says, "You know what? He's a very busy man. We don't want to bother Mr. Dollamore right now. We'll come back later." Just kind of that sort of like shift from being on the side of the law and kind of towing the line for these corporations to turning the blind eye, just kind of being seeing something else was kind of cool.
I think he's afraid. It's not that too. Yeah, like he's fucking like, kill me, and he's like sweating and he can't shoot the gun. And his head's down. Sir, what's going on in there, sir? And he's just like, let's go eat.
Oh yeah, maybe. Yeah, I didn't thought that he's just afraid. I kind of thought that was sort of like a.
It's kind of both. Like he's kind of like I'd be frightened, and then at the same time, like the performative aspect of what Jim Crow is up to and what the police lieutenant knows about this guy.
Yeah.
Or believes about this guy. It seems to me that he recognizes that justice is being done.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true.
Yeah, and he's kind of sad about it, and at the same time, he's just like, "What the fuck? Let's go eat."
Yeah, Jim Crow makes it fun. That's what it's all about. Yeah,
straight out of Camp Town.
Oh, that panel where he's saying, "Kill me in God's name," and like the guy's got his eye, like finger hooked literally like in his eye socket.
Oh yeah.
Like, I don't like that.
Oh, I didn't see the eye socket part. I saw the mouth for sure. Yeah.
I guess we should also touch on too. So the way that they're able to make this drug is because they made contact with the Scorpion Loa to kind of tie it into what we were talking about with the experience later. And so Jim Crow has to go down into the underworld to confront Baron Zargin. And
I got Zeraguin.
Okay.
Zeraguin, something like that in my brain. Yeah.
Yeah.
Incidentally, that's if there is such a Loa, I'm unaware of it, but I'll tell you right now, there's definitely one in that Bertrio book guy. All this Baron Zeraguin stuff is all out of that. I don't think it has like authenticity is whatever, but I don't think it has an authentic source like within voodoo culture. Anyway, just FYI on that one. Same thing with the UFOs. The good UFO, bad UFO thing. That's in that book too.
That's Oh, is it? Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I thought that was just sort of a general conspiracy sort of thing.
No, I think it ties into conspiracy culture just fine, but no, it's explicitly from that book.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah. I found out like you'd really be surprised about like the number of things he ripped from it for this issue.
Okay.
Yeah. To good effect, but still.
Yeah.
In the letters page, he does explicitly say that. He cites Mama Lola. He cites the whatever the fuck the book was called again, Voodoo Gnostic Workbook, and some other stuff. And actually, in a documentary by Maya Deren, which I watched about voodoo. It's from like 1956 or 1946, something like that. Just watching documentary about rituals in Haiti. Anyway.
Yeah.
These guys, I like this issue a lot.
Me too.
Suddenly shit's real weird and dangerous feeling. And I start getting into it.
Yeah, and that voodoo, like the landscape of like the world that Jim Crow enters to go consult the Scorpion Loa, like it's really neat. It's like all weird. He picks up a puddle to like find the portal to the underworld, and it's just sort of like a floppy, like almost like a cartoon kind of thing. It's very cool.
Oh, and Matrix Watch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, that's all just like the mirror scene when Neo's given the pill.
Right.
So this is one of the things that Morrison cites. Like, actually, there's quite a few things. I saw a list, but they don't show up for a little bit later. But anyway, this was one of the things. Do you think so? So in the next issue we're going to read, the monster comes out of the mirror world, and Jim Crow is the mirror fantastique.
Oh shit!
And this is the whole nightmare world. Like, this is a nightmare world that he just like everyone hungry. Like I was like, what the fuck are you doing in there, Jim? And he's just like traveling into a nightmare world in order to like, just talk to the Scorpion Loa. But
yeah, well, because like Baron Samedi wouldn't be afraid of nightmare world. Just how it is. And that's sort of another characteristic. He's just kind of amused by mortal striving and the the sort of like the struggle of life and death, and kind of interested in it.
Yeah, and like, am I getting older or am I getting younger? This is the kind of mysterious shit I like best.
Yeah,
I can just taste the universe running down the back of my throat.
Lust for life.
Yeah, and just like an acceptance of the relativity of time, which is appropriate for sort of high level invisibles.
Yeah,
like time is a single object essentially. Is a lot of the conversation we're going to be having later. And this is maybe we get a little bit of it with the idea that King Mob's going to meet Edith when she was younger, but I think this is the whole first sense that we're going to be dealing with. No, obviously they time traveled.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
but a little bit different.
The time travel bit, I think, comes from this Bertrand guy stuff too, and same thing with the windmill.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and they talk about ontic sphere. That comes from it as well. I think he was clearly reading this stuff and like really inspired by it.
Oh shit! How about that?
Yeah.
Cool.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So speaking of mirrors and monsters coming through them.
Yeah. Royal Monsters number 11.
Number 11?
Oh, did I?
I guess it is.
Yeah. Okay.
Is it? Yeah. Okay, it's number 11. Yeah. Good. We got Sir Miles now.
Yeah.
We've seen Sir Miles, but we've never really spent any time with him, I don't think. And I really like Sir Miles.
He's an interesting character.
Yeah. He's like a charming asshole at this point.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm not convinced that he's interesting at this point.
Yeah.
But like I know that he's going to, but like Morrison does a good job of selling a charismatic villain, and you really need that,
Yeah. I stay for it. What? When he's decapitating.
He cuts that fucking guy's head off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stop reminding me of things I once said, Tarquin. My God. Yeah. I just love his interaction with Tarquin. That's funny.
He's in control.
Yeah. And then so this is the story. Fuck, what's this guy's goddamn name too? Actually, I really should write these things down.
Oh, the invisible guy is in deep cover?
Yeah.
I don't remember his name either.
Yeah, she calls him Dad.
Yeah. He's just kind of
Sutton.
Just a schmo.
Sutton.
Yeah, okay.
They just call him by his last name, Sutton.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, he's just been feeding human bodies to the Antichrist for 6 years.
Just a job.
Yep, it's no problem.
Yeah.
I think we get an allusion to the Hand of Fate here.
Okay.
When the key is a prism, the prism is the key. I'm not sure which. They taught me how to angle it properly. There are 5 distinct hand movements.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
I remember the origami guy that we're going to see later with respect to time travel. And I just think there's hand movements, I remember an echo of that in the future.
Oh, I didn't think about that. Oh, cool.
And then obviously the rippling of the mirror, and when he's just
Yeah.
talking about, and I think also in later issues, we're definitely going to go to the other side of that mirror.
Yeah.
When we get to Mr. Quimper and all that shit. Yeah.
Well, this is appropriate for the podcast too. I think we get a Brundlefly moment here where he like the Antichrist thing like vomits corrosive froth before it eats its food.
Yeah, softens and
nice.
partially dissolves the meat.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is so this is like, do you think this is like a David Icke? This is David Icke sort of stuff, right? Like a sort of like refraction of his sort of like lizard people who've infiltrated the royal family sort of thing.
It's definitely like royal family conspiracy shit. Like
yeah.
I don't think it's David Icke, because we don't get the lizard people. We obviously get the fucking monster moonchild baby.
Yeah, I don't mean that it's literally, but I feels like that's like where he just wanted to have a different sort of conspiracy, but the same sort of like stakes.
He's so my bathroom reading has been Robert Anton Wilson's It's All Under Control.
Okay, right.
And that book's like, fuck, when is that? I think it's published before this book or roughly at about the same time.
Yeah, early 90s.
Yeah, and there's a page on Diana. And I know for certain that Morrison was into all the conspiracy stuff, but also Robert Anton Wilson.
Okay.
And I just think and I don't think actually there's an entry for David Icke. I might be wrong about that. I'm not sure when David Icke hit the big time.
Yeah, I think it was definitely I'm pretty sure sometime in the 90s, like where it kind of blew up. I find it just funny, like, to think about. I never really thought about this before, but it's kind of funny to think that it would mean anything. That so the conspiracy is that they want to crown this beast, and make it the king. But like, who the fuck cares about the king? Like, this is an institution that has to remind taxpayers that it only costs them like a couple pounds a year to support a royal family, that they shouldn't just get rid of it. So it just kind of struck me as humorous. Like, what are the stakes here actually?
Yeah, no, I think the stakes were a lot bigger. I don't know, maybe they felt bigger in the 90s.
Yeah.
Maybe like I'm thinking about
something.
Yeah, even Canada with like Confederation and not Confederation, but I mean like there was a point where we were just like, we don't need the monarchy anymore. We're going to become our own country. I went and got the book. I'm going to see if there's a David Icke entry. I don't think so. Illuminati. HIJK.
This also reminded me of while you're looking that up. And this actually predates Humperdinck from Preacher, but I thought it like, so the idea is that they're supposed to have this like magnificent creature, the Moonchild, that was going to be the Shadow King of New England, the terrible Messiah of a dark millennium. But it's just sort of this like mishapen, like hunched monster that they just have to take care of and feed. And that definitely remind in Preacher, of course, you have Humperdinck, who's like the son of the ancestor of Christ.
I think
it's a total shit show.
It's about aristocratic incest.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like here's the deformed baby of our rituals, and it kind of ties into like Freemason fears, satanic panic.
Yeah,
and it's in the same way that pharmaceutical companies, getting back to actually, one thing we didn't talk about with the previous story with this pharmaceutical company, it's interesting that so in 1996, the story about CIA crack cocaine connection.
Right, of course. Yeah, the conspiracy that it all kind of hinges on. Right.
But that's not till 1996. No CIA, and it's the fucking pharmaceuticals, man. I thought that was significant and interesting because 2 years later, for sure, man, it would have been like government stuff. And I think as this story goes on, I think government stuff becomes especially when they go to America. Although Sir Miles is obviously government stuff. So maybe it's just like in the British context, it feels a little different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, in the same way that pharmaceutical billionaires are the villains and the conspirators, the aristocrats, the monarchy, the people who own all the land and shit, they're the conspirators. But like, is it really a conspiracy if they own everything?
Yeah, I guess that's a good one.
like what's the point of this? Like, they're already monsters, but like the story, one of the pleasures of conspiracy culture is to further villainize the villains. They're not just monsters; they hunt people. They hunt homeless people,
which they do here. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to doing my bit to help reduce the country's unemployment figures just a little, as he's setting up the hunt.
Well, I was actually really struck by the line even before that. It's heartbreaking to see such neglect and deprivation. Taken out of context, that's like a legitimate, like that's a humanitarian sentiment. But then he follows it up with what you just said, and then you begin to wonder, like, who's neglect, who, deprivation, why? He doesn't care, or I think he just doesn't care.
He doesn't care.
Yeah, he's like, I'm going to destroy you all.
Yeah, sort of like the gallows humor, like the sort of like cynical, evil stance of, you're nothing, like you're just stats.
Yeah. So that immediately cements his supervillain status.
Yeah.
If you didn't really need that to be cemented.
Yeah.
And then well, we get the Kirk Morrison thing.
Yeah.
The novelist.
Appearance of Kirk Morrison.
Yeah. The Killing Moon, which this story takes place under a full moon, with the hunt and the whatnot. He's like, it's a werewolf story. Grant never gives up a chance to be super meta. Then he finds it. Go on.
I was going to say, and at that moment, you're also speaking of like sort of like tying into the bigger themes, but like these two servants are having this conversation about these people are in cages, and they're about to be, killed. And the guy just says, "Oh, like what are they going to do with these lots? It's none of my business. It's not my place. See no evil, hear no evil. I say, just to pay to do a job and work and ask no questions."
It gets even, and actually, I think it goes. Oh, so there's that. I think there's two layers that of self-defense, psychic self-defense for these guys. Like, there's that, and then he's just like, actually, they're better off here. And you see like the entire way that prisoners and marginalized individuals are, like, how you manage to ignore them in your daily life. Like, oh, it's not my problem, and they should be happy we're giving them whatever.
Yeah.
Just total self-justification throughout. I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. But then, and then he sees his daughter. It's interesting that Sutton's first, like, one of his, my God, what have you done to your hair?
Yeah.
That's like, it's a real human moment. Like, it reveals a lot about this Sutton guy. Like, he's so, like, the conservatism, even under these conditions, I haven't seen you in ages. And like, my immediate response is like, why do you look so weird? Yeah. So, and then, Sutton is revealed to be an invisible who is a fucking loser. And
for 6 years, he's been kind of like sent to kill this thing, and he just can't do it because he feels sympathy for it. And he thinks that it likes him.
And it, like, how can you be so all of the invisibles that we see in this story are, I don't know, they've touched enlightenment, but this Sutton character, he really hasn't. I don't think, and it's a strange title for him to have.
Well, maybe it's that deep, like that idea of deep cover and kind of like coming to inside out and like Stockholm syndrome, sympathize with, the people that you're working with. And I mean, that's again, like a major, like, we're going to see that sort of idea again and again, the two sides being one potentially. So he's another, he's just an example of somebody who's like way further down that path and can't think his way out of it. He's paralyzed.
Right. Yeah. He's the Mr. Six that didn't come back.
Yeah, he's so close to being able to.
No one's as cool as Mr. Six, though. So.
That's true.
yeah, I don't have anything else on this.
Yeah, it's not like it's just like it's a great introduction to Sir Miles, and like that moment, he's an asshole, but so they make like Kate has been a plant all along, and they get him to flip on the Invisibles, and he tells her like hate and hurt corrode sudden. They made her ours long before she met us because he's been a shitty dad, and then like they're gonna turn on Kate. They're gonna kill her unless he tells them everything he knows, and then they just kill her anyway. Like it doesn't matter. Like Sir Miles says, I already knew everything. I just wanted you to know that you're pathetic. Can I hate you? Which is just like such a like it's an amazing villain moment.
Yeah. You and your kind, like just your kind. They just carries a. Actually, now that you said that, I did write down that the hate and hurt corrode. Like I think it's significant. They made her ours long before she met us. And I think, like it's silly, but like it's shades of Star Wars here, right?
Yes, yeah, totally.
Shades of the dark side.
Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely.
And I know that that's that idea. I know that Morrison's going to latch onto that, through his X-Men run and his depiction of Darkseid and the anti-life equation and all that shit. Like as he turns his Invisibles ideas into superhero, he transfers it over there. But then maybe it goes back to the thing about Pearson, like these people, something happens to them psychically, and then they're absorbed over time into the drama. Somehow, like the outer church is, it's ultimately about human emotion.
And degradation. Yeah. And it's gonna, in fact, it sets up the next issue very nicely, because I think that in a lot of ways that's what it's about.
Yeah, I think the next one's like, this is we might as well let's just jump on over there to Best Man Fall issue 12.
I don't know.
Steve Parkhouse, artist.
What
were you gonna say?
I was gonna say I think I do know how you feel about this, but like this is to me a series highlight. Like just like the art's amazing, like the story is incredible.
Yeah, I do share that. Like it, on the one hand, it's kind of a form, like you're not going to come back to this guy, to the story of Bobby the Soldier. And but this is where the ideas of time being a single solid, like a single moment, are in one fell swoop, like just shown, through ellipses, like just jumping around, jump cuts through time.
Yeah.
And then back to this, like we said earlier, this idea that it's, it's just a game. Try to remember. And which is, actually, now that I'm looking at it, the captions, it's like, I'm dying. Oh, fuck. I think it's the same font. It's the same color. It's like all of the captions are either the thoughts of Bobby or this voice that doesn't seem like Bobby.
Right.
Try to remember. It's only a game, and that
like a meta consciousness.
Yeah,
like, maybe Barbaleth, like in a way. Like I've always felt like that's. I know it's not going to mean a lot to anyone right now, and we can't really, given the rules that we kind of impose on ourselves, we can't jump too far ahead and talk about that.
Well, actually, no, that we can a little bit, because they mentioned, Barbeleth was explicitly mentioned in the previous stories. It's just like, but it's only as a spray painted name.
Yeah.
So like whatever it is, that orb, that sphere, the green and red sphere that seems to be associated with Barbeleth and has something to do with breaking free of constraints.
Yes.
It feels like that's who's talking. Yeah, I do agree with that. But I get, and then I guess the point that the idea that I just had is that, like, and I think you already said it, as a meta consciousness, it's like Barbeleth is not only the character, but like it's inside our head, because I'm reading those words, right? Trying to remember, like it only exists inside my experience of the text. At the same time, it also is the experience of this Bobby character. Yeah, it's Morrison trying to fuck with people.
Yeah.
Succeeding well.
Yeah. And I mean, in the same way, like the way this jumps around, and there's so many, like, it's such an artful telling of the story. And like all these, like, these little moments become big moments. Like, so it starts off and like these kids are playing, they're shooting each other, making a rifle, and like Bobby runs down the hill, and then it cuts to him like be like an explosion going off behind him because he's a soldier, and then the explosions going off in the sky turn into fireworks that he's looking at as a kid. And it's just like these big moments are in the little moments, and they're like, you know, just kind of foreshadowing each other, and they're all part of one thing, which reinforces all those themes. It's really cool.
And apparently this game, Best Man Fall, is a performative game of children. So it's not just like, it's not that you are killed by something. It's not like a game of cowboys and Indians. It's how dramatically can you die as children are pretending to shoot you.
Oh, I didn't know that. No, interesting.
Yeah. And, you know, it gets back to the Delang, or however we pronounce it. You know, and the idea of creativity itself being, I don't know, spoken through about in this story.
Yeah.
And yeah, like it starts off with the little kid, you know, make it a rifle. He's there with his little dog, and we're going to see him bury that fucking dog in like, I don't know how many pages, in just like the saddest way possible.
Yeah.
It's in the burying of his mother. It's just someone, it's not the highlights of someone's life though. It is, except for maybe it's a mix, because he does find the love of his life, you know, and end up marrying her. But
yeah, I think it's suggesting, you know, just that life is a meat grinder, and you know, you're going to be dehumanized by these greater forces. And I think that's why I find this story like really, so I guess we should just, we haven't really said yet, but this guy is like a random like jobber grunt who gets killed by King Mob in the first issue. He just like is a guy who's running down the hall trying to defend Harmony House, and he gets shot in the groin and then bleeds out. And they're like then we come back to him and like get his whole life story in issue 12, which is really cool. But yeah, like there's all these, like, you just get this sense of this guy, and like he's not a bad kid. Like he's actually really seems to be a really sweet kid, you know, and like very trusting, like full of life and stuff like that. But then like just all these experiences, like the traumatic stress, and like these little moments of breaking his trust, like when his brother says, like, get against the wall. He's like, oh, what is it? Like, what are you gonna do? And he just like kicks his leg and shatters his knee like against this wall. There's like all these like acts of casual brutality that he's forced to go through. And
you know, abuse in the home. He's listening to his parents having a fight. You know, it's implied there's spousal abuse in his past.
Yeah, definitely.
And then also like his childhood fears of like that one kid wearing the gas mask,
which becomes King Mob.
Yeah, and you're like, that's actually, there's a great scene like that. One of those scenes in the Death Stranding story. Sorry, just I won't dwell on it, but I was just like, oh, cool. But yeah, it's just sort of positing that not just greater social forces, although that's going to factor in as well, but just like childhood traumas and childhood fears, basic bullying, and brother, the dynamics of a bullying brother. You know, these can potentially lead some people down some dark paths. And that's where these goons, these Myrmidians come from. Like all those guys that work for the Joker, like all those guys that work for the Bond villain, they all got a fucking story. So I guess it's kind of like James Joyce in that sense as well.
Yeah, totally.
Everyone's interesting. You know, every human is interesting.
Yeah. And there's because it's hard. I mean, so like one of the things that this guy goes through, and like you get all these like moments of like, you know, how excited he is to have a kid, but his kid has cerebral palsy, it looks like, and you know, he's trying to feed her and stuff like that, and like he just like you're not told until far into this that he just snaps and like just hits his wife one day, but he's like, he obviously feels very remorseful about it, and it's not to you like it's I struggle with how I feel about this because like obviously that's an inexcusable thing to do, but he really seems to be remorseful and like he doesn't want to, he just grabs his kid and says like, I don't want to be like this. Like you're given all these ways that he's like, like he's been in war, he's been traumatically injured, like his family like has all kind of died off, and like his brother tells him that I always hated you on his deathbed. Yeah. Like, that's an awesome moment. But it's like just like you see the weight of this guy's life and like how trapped he obviously feels, and then that leads him to take this job at Harmony House. So I don't know. It's like I guess the why it feels tragic is it feels like could be anyone given the wrong experiences or the right experiences, however you want to look at that. Like how can you judge somebody else's life when they've been through shit like that? And like obviously you have to, like you can't live that way. But it's also, I don't know. I don't know exactly how to say it.
Yeah, it's just you end up sympathizing, like, and we're getting back to Morrison's skill. Like he knows in that scene where Bobby, is hitting his wife kind of repeatedly. Stop hitting me. Yeah. But then it cuts to his first, just for one panel, just like he meets her, and it's a moment like, oh yeah, these people used to love each other, and then he's like, and then it goes to the panel like, oh Christ, oh Jesus Christ. Yeah. I don't want to be like this, and what am I going to do? And I think, and that's something really human. Like I just can't, I'm sure there's some people who just like, who engage in domestic assault and don't give a shit about it. And then other people, as part of a complex dynamics, I don't know. I'm sure like they cause the injury to the person and then they feel remorse and then they do it again.
Yeah. It's those cycles of abuse.
Yeah. It's like, they're just stuck in this thing and they're just like, what am I going to do? And, and like, he's a thug. Like he is like, he's happy to, like when he's called to deal with the problem, like he's, I hope I'm getting overtime for this. Like he's still one of those fucking pricks. Yeah. But he, like Morrison's just does a great job of like, I guess in the next page, like he's afraid of that gas mask in the shed and he faces it with his sword, like he's still like, I think as you age and I think as you have children, it is a powerful, question or statement to like when you meet someone who's a prick to just say like, you used to be a baby once, you used to be someone's child and fuck, what happened? And this story's like, this is what happened. This what happened to this fucking guy. But I think it's, anyway, I just think you can sympathize if you take a moment to imagine, like truly imagine the steps that led someone somewhere.
That's well said. Yeah, it's those cycles of abuse. It's like, the more you've witnessed that as a kid, the more you've been subjected to, the more likely it is that you can't see around that. And that is tragic because, like, I don't think a lot of people would want to be like that. Yeah.
Actually, I don't think he gets shot in the dick. Some other guy gets shot and he gets shot in the face. And he's like, I can't. I'm glad he's not the dick shot guy. That guy does bleed out. I think you're right. But fuck, this isn't happening. And then I don't know. Okay, so it's a black panel. Oh wait, that's King Mob's last words. Yes, it is happening. So he becomes death in that moment. And then it's only a game. Trying to remember.
Yeah, and right before the end of it, he has that nice moment with like when he's dating his wife, his girlfriend at that point. Yes. He's like, she's like, you ever wonder how you'll die? Nah, I'm gonna live forever.
Yeah. This is the best holiday I've ever had. Yeah, and it's just like and they have their first kiss, and they look like a lovely young couple. She's cute, he's handsome, and then done.
Then he's bleeding out on the.
Yeah, fucking game over, bro. This is I'll say thus far, it's a high point. It's an emotional high point. I think it gains a lot of resonance from everything that happened previously.
Yeah.
Like if I read this story outside of the context of the Invisibles generally, I'm not sure what I would have thought of it. You know, like all this talk about it's a game, and maybe it would still mean something to me, but I think it's enhanced by all of the experiences that sort of came before. It's ballsy in the sense that actually, really, for 4 issues, he's abandoned his main characters.
I thought of Sandman, like when you said last time that this was like the early part is sort of like the Sandman sort of like the model.
Yes.
And I was like, I guess that's more evidence to your
No, actually, after you said that, I was like, I actually wasn't even thinking that, but yep, it's totally, even at this stage in the storytelling, it's a Gaiman move.
But that's great though. I mean, like that's like Gaiman having influence on comics and saying, it doesn't have to always be like the focus. I think that's just like sort of like a stylistic break that improved comics. So good for Gaiman, good for Morrison.
Yeah, way to go, fella. I don't have anything else. We 4 issues and we managed probably another hour and a half roughly. So that's how it's going to be. Grant gives us lots to talk about. Yeah. After this, I think it's 4 more issues, maybe 5. I don't have it in front of me, but we'll be back with more Invisibles. And I think the next time you and me are going to talk, it'll be with James, and we're going to be doing. Are you gonna do Rambo?
Yeah, I think I'm going to do Rambo.
We're gonna be doing Rambo, Last Blood, and Enemy of the State. Little Tony Scott feature, and then we'll be back for some other stuff. And in the meanwhile, we're gonna find out who the president of the United States is, I guess.
Now all we need is a little energon and a lot of luck.